Arham had always been the quiet one in his group. He was the kind of boy who listened more than he talked. His friends were louder, braver, and more confident, or at least that's what they liked to show. They were the type who loved excitement, even if it came with danger. Arham admired their confidence, but deep inside, he knew he wasn't like them. He liked calm things, slow music, and simple nights at home. But he didn't want to be left out, especially not today. It was a cool Saturday evening when everything began. The streets were slowly filling with people heading to markets, tea stalls, and restaurants. The sky had turned purple, and the air was fresh after a short rain. Arham was sitting on the edge of his bed, scrolling through messages, when his phone vibrated again. It was from his friend Danish. "Bro, we're going for a night drive. Come fast. Don't be boring." Arham stared at the message. He knew what night drive meant with them: speed, loud music, risky turns, and no real plan. He hesitated. He could already imagine his mother's voice, reminding him to be careful, to avoid bad decisions, to listen to his conscience. But then a follow-up message came. "Everyone is coming. Only you left." That one line made him sigh. He didn't want to be the only one staying home. He didn't want to be teased the next day and called old man or uncle for choosing caution. So against his better judgment, he replied with a short, "Oh." He grabbed his jacket and stepped outside. His mother called from the kitchen. "Where are you going?" "Dinner is almost ready. Just meeting the boys for a bit." "I'll be back soon," he replied, trying to sound casual. She looked at him carefully, noticing the hurried tone in his voice. "Drive slowly. And don't stay out too late." "I won't," he said, but his voice didn't feel honest even to himself. Arham reached the street corner, where his friends were already gathered around two cars, Danish's white Civic and Zane's black Corolla. Their headlights cut through the dim street, and loud music was already playing. Danish leaned out of the car window, waving dramatically. "Finally," he shouted. "We thought you fell asleep like a grandpa." Arham forced a smile and got into the back seat of Danish's car. The smell of cologne, energy drinks, and excitement filled the space. Everyone seemed pumped, laughing and shouting as if nothing in the world could touch them. Arham tried to relax, but he felt a tightness in his chest he couldn't explain. As they pulled onto the main road, the music grew louder. The wind from the open windows blew everyone's hair back. Danish, who was driving, had that wild grin he always got when he felt free. He pressed the accelerator, and the car shot forward with a sudden burst of speed. "Bro, slow down," Arham said, laughing lightly to hide his worry. "Relax," Danish replied. "It's just the start." They crossed intersections, zipped between cars, and honked unnecessarily. Arham held the door handle tightly, telling himself it was okay, that his friends had driven like this before, that they were just having fun. But something about tonight felt different. There was a carelessness in the air, a rush, a need to prove something. After half an hour, the roads became emptier as they reached the outskirts of the city. Here, the street lights were fewer, the roads wider, and the temptation to speed much stronger. Zane's car pulled up next to them, window to window. He leaned out and shouted, "Race to the next signal?" "No," Arham shouted immediately, but his voice was drowned by the laughter of the others. Danish smirked. "You scared, Arham?" "No, I just—" "Then relax. You're acting like a teacher." The other boys laughed. That was all it took for Danish to press the accelerator again, for the engine to roar, for the world to blur around them. Arham's heart began to pound. He wasn't excited. He was terrified. But he didn't know how to make them stop. He didn't want to sound weak, but he didn't want to be in that car anymore. As the two cars raced down the road, they weaved left and right, passing under flickering streetlights. The empty road ahead seemed like a tempting playground to them. But Arham could see the danger in every shadow, every curve, every sudden change in the pavement. "Danish, slow down," he said louder this time. "Don't worry. I'm in control," Danish shouted over the music and the rushing wind. But Arham could feel he wasn't. Just then, up ahead, the road curved slightly to the left. Zane's car took the turn smoothly, still fast, but in control. But Danish was trying to overtake him, pushing the car harder, wanting to win, wanting to show off. Arham saw it before anyone else did the small patch of water left from the earlier rain. It glistened under the streetlight like a thin sheet of glass. Danish slowed down the road, but it was too late. The tires hit the wet patch, and the car jerked violently. The back end swung to the right. Danish tried to correct it, but the steering wheel slipped from his grip for a moment. The car spun. Arham felt his stomach rise into his throat as everything blurred: lights, sound, motion, fear. The car skidded off the road, heading toward the side barrier. Arham heard someone scream, maybe himself, maybe one of the others. The car crashed against the metal barrier, shaking everyone inside. The sound was loud, but strangely distant, as if happening underwater. The airbags deployed, and the world went white for a moment. The car finally came to a stop. Silence. A heavy, terrifying silence. Arham sat frozen, his breathing fast, his heart pounding. His ears rang, and he could feel his hands trembling. The others groaned softly, shocked and disoriented, but alive. Danish was holding his wrist, wincing in pain. The boy in the passenger seat stared ahead in fear, his face pale. Arham tried to speak, but his throat felt dry. He reached for the door, his hand shaking. "Is everyone okay?" he whispered. No one answered properly. They were still in shock. Zane's car screeched to a stop behind them. He and his cousin ran toward them, panic on their faces. "Bro, what happened?" "Are you guys okay?" Zane shouted, pulling the door open. Arham stepped out slowly, legs weak and unsteady. His mind felt heavy. His chest hurt from the seatbelt's impact. But he was alive. All of them were. Danish finally pushed open his door. "I'm fine. I'm fine," he muttered, although his voice was shaking. Traffic had slowed behind them, and a few bystanders rushed over. Someone called the police. Someone else called an ambulance, just in case. Arham stood by the side of the road, hugging himself as the night breeze hit his face. He looked at the damaged car, the crumpled front, the broken lights, the dented barrier. It could have been worse. Much worse. The thought made his eyes sting. As the police arrived, the questions began. What happened? Who was driving? How fast were they going? Danish lowered his head and didn't answer. The officers looked at the skid marks, the impact point, the damaged road barrier. They didn't need much explanation. Arham felt a weight in his chest, a mix of fear, guilt, and realization. If they had been just a little more careless, if the barrier hadn't held, if another car had been nearby, things could have ended in a way he didn't even want to imagine. As the ambulance crew checked everyone, Arham sat on the curb. His phone buzzed. It was his mother. "Beta, where are you?" "It's late." Arham stared at the screen, and tears filled his eyes. He swallowed hard before answering. "Mama, I'm coming home." His voice broke, and he had to take a breath to steady himself. When he finally reached home later, shaken and exhausted, his mother looked at him with worried eyes. She didn't need him to explain everything. She hugged him tightly, and for the first time in a long while, Arham didn't pull away. That night, lying in his bed, he replayed everything again and again, the messages, the teasing, the race, the loss of control, the crash. He knew one thing with complete certainty. He had followed his friends, and it had cost him, not his life, thankfully, but his peace, his confidence, his trust in himself. He realized how powerful peer pressure could be, how dangerous it was to ignore your own voice just to fit in. He didn't blame Danish or Zane or anyone else. They were boys being careless, boys pretending to be men. But he blamed himself for staying silent, for going along with something he knew was wrong. He promised himself he would never do it again, not for friendship, not for approval, not for anything. Moral lesson: never follow others blindly, especially when your heart tells you something is wrong. True courage is not in doing what everyone else does. It is in saying no, even when you stand alone. Your safety, your life, and your future are worth more than fitting in with the crowd.